everyone, this is Pingshi, and today I want to share with you my travel experience when I went to London for the first time. I went there with my aunt, Tita Vanji, in 2019, and she allowed me to create our itinerary for the 10 days that we spent there. She was also very helpful because she thought of getting us a London pass. We took the 6-day pass, and when she had it delivered at her New York address, so I was here in Manila planning our itinerary, I was able to pick the places that are near each other so that we make the most out of every day that we're there. And some of the spots that were not part of the pass, we also combined it with the other areas that are recommended by my friends and my brother who got to visit London previously. I was very excited because I'm not much of a planner, but this time I got to experience not just creating our itinerary, but I was also in charge of the city mapper. So in the past, I'm no good at directions, but I finally overcame that when we did this trip. So let me begin with the Tower Bridge. It's actually the first landmark that I saw in London. I was still in the plane and we were just about to descend Heathrow Airport. It was very dark outside, so it was all the more magical when I looked outside my window and saw it all lit up with all the city lights twinkling around it. So I feel like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be an amazing trip. And it was. I even had goosebumps. That's how excited I was for my long vacation. And up close, it's also very beautiful because it is painted with really bright colors and it really just stands out in the city. I went there very early in the morning with my aunt, so there weren't much people around yet. And I got to take a lot of very nice pictures in the area.
Dediretso ako dun sa dulo.
Nakapagtalon ako pwede, pero hindi ako nakapagtalon eh.
Ay, ang ganda oh.
Sa tubig ka babagsak.
Saan tayo last time? Doon tayo sa... Ay, hindi. Yung sa kabilang side pala yung may big bed.
Ah. I think may picture kami dalawa ni Michael dito.
Talaga, tita?
I think sa nasakpan ko kasi.
Maybe some people would think that it's the London Bridge, but it's not. It's actually the bridge that connects to the Tower of London, which is a castle in the middle of the city. What I like about the Tower Bridge is that it actually has a museum.
See inside. Ayan, baka pababa, hindi kaya?
Hindi ah.
Where they can tell you about the engines and how the bridge actually lifts for when yachts, boats, ships can pass by it. And they also have a glass walkway where you can peek down below and look at passing cars.
Ayan, ikaw sa baba ka, tingnan mo. Ah, nakakatakot, tita. Oh my gosh!
But it was a bit scary for me because I also had fear of heights. I feel like I might fall when I walk on it. But it's a very nice experience.
Tita!
And then of course we went to the Tower of London. It's actually a medieval castle where you can still see how a bedchamber of a king looks like. What's really lovely about it is that you can see the view of the city, the River Thames, even the Shard from when you're standing in the Tower of London.
Tita!
It also has wooden pathways. I can just imagine how the knights in the old times would be walking by it, guarding the castle. was so excited to take videos. I had my GoPro on my one hand and then my phone on the other that I actually dropped my phone and broke it. I wasn't able to use it for the rest of the trip. I feel like it was telling me that, hey, Pinchy, you should just enjoy and make the most out of everything that you're seeing.
Ah, ganyang kalaki siya, tito. Baka yung crown jewels na dyan sa gitna. Nice. Taas.
Magkano dun sa ano?
Hindi, wag na. Maganda na yung dun sa mga gilid-gilid.
Pwede pumasok pala, anak. Pasok tayo.
Sige.
Kasi may ano naman tayo eh.
Pwede naman yan.
Dito naman na tayo eh.
Ano kaya yak nandyan sa looban?
Ano, baka yung brownie ano?
Hindi naman tayo kasama dyan. Charot.
Oo, susyosan naman. Pwede naman tayo pumasok. Diyan pa tayo galing?
From the Tower Bridge, we went to the Leadenhall Market. But it was quite an adventure because we hopped on a bus that is heading to an opposite direction. It was going to Surrey.
May katrapikan
And
din.
it took me 30 minutes before I realized that it was the wrong bus. So we had to go down and look for another bus that we can hop on going to the Leadenhall Market. So for me, I prefer riding the train because it's easier to follow than the bus rides. When we arrived at the Leadenhall Market, we were shocked because the shops were closed. It was a Sunday and I didn't realize that on Sundays they don't have the open market there. So it was really quiet, but I still enjoyed walking around. It's actually a location for Diagon Alley in Harry Potter. That's why I wanted to go there. The cobblestone pathways are really nice and it was a very good experience just the same. The Shard was not part of our list, but since it's very close to Leadenhall Market, we decided to go there as well. It turned out to be a very nice experience because we got to see a 360 view of the city. We even enjoyed drinking wine when we were there. And you can just hang out while looking at the trains passing by. The London Eye can also be seen from where we were. I enjoyed it. On our first day in London, we actually didn't go to our Airbnb first. We just stored our luggages in a shop at Leicester Square, and then we proceeded to go to Trafalgar Square and to see the National Gallery. That's where I first appreciated the paintings of Claude Monet. The water lilies are just so nice. The strokes of his painting is just so beautiful. And Trafalgar Square is so alive with a lot of performers and vendors selling different kinds of artsy stuff. It's very beautiful just looking at the different architecture of the buildings in the area. We even walked going to Westminster Bridge so we can check out the Big Ben and the London Eye. That's where you can take nice pictures of those areas. And then we headed to Neal's Yard. It's a hip place for millennials. It's a very small area with different brightly colored shops. So we spent the whole afternoon just walking around the area so we can have the feel of London. And we even walked past by the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child Theater. I also love Leicester Square because it's also alive with performers, and it just feels surreal looking at the theater where they show Les Miserables. For me, I just see that from pictures, and to finally see it in person is just amazing. Going to London also felt like a pilgrimage for me because we visited a lot of churches when we were there. My favorite would be St. Paul's Cathedral. That's where Princess Diana and Prince Charles got married. But more than that, what I love about it is that it has a dome where you can walk 500 plus steps just to reach it. And going up may be exhausting, but it was worth it. I felt so fulfilled when I got to finish the walk, and you'd also be rewarded with a very beautiful view of the city. But it was actually quite a challenge. The last stretch required me to go through a very narrow staircase, and you can see the people below you. So, like I said, I have fear of heights. At some point, I wanted to turn back, but I had no choice but to continue because there was no space left for any person who would want to go down. That staircase was so narrow. But at the same time, it was nice because, having that time by yourself, just meditating and trying to concentrate on your steps. I was just so thankful to God for giving me that chance to have a long vacation. And of course, a few steps away from St. Paul's Cathedral would be the Millennium Bridge. That's a location that you'd find in Harry Potter. Remember that moment when Death Eaters were about to destroy the city? And as we were walking in the Millennium Bridge, I just love how we can look back and see a beautiful view of the cathedral. It's very nice. It's a very nice walk that you can take when you're in London. Then, of course, we went to Westminster Abbey. It's a very nice church with a lot of intricate design details that you'd notice when you see it in person. You can really feel how there's so much history in the place. A lot of monarchs are buried in the tombs area in the church. So they gave us an audio set where we listened to stories about the kings and queens. That's where I learned more about Mary, Queen of Scots. She's the cousin of Queen Elizabeth I, who got her beheaded because Mary has a claim to the throne in England. Mary is also a devout Catholic, and it's just so admirable that even during a scary moment in her life, she managed to pray. And her famous last words were, "Into thy hands, Lord, I commend my spirit." And we all know that those were also the words of Jesus Christ when he got crucified. Now, I can just imagine how that strong faith of hers really helped her surpass all the obstacles, all the struggles that she went through as a queen. Like, she was married to King Francis in France, but he died early, so she had no choice but to get married to several other men because that's how you really assert your power during those times. And then you also have Queen Elizabeth I, who was a Protestant, and she didn't get married because she was just so focused in her calling, which was to become the Queen of England. It was really just inspiring to know more about these women who know what they want, who go after what they want, and stand by what they believe in no matter what. So you see, during this trip, I discovered that I loved history. In the past, I would only read romantic period novels, like I like those written by Judith McNaught, Jude Vera, Stephanie Lawrence, and even Julia Quinn, the novelist behind that popular Netflix series Bridgerton. But this time around, I really got to know real stories of kings and queens. Of course, going to London wouldn't be complete if I didn't visit the Windsor Castle. So that's the second home of the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II. I'm a fan of The Crown, that Netflix series that talks about Queen Elizabeth's journey as a queen. In real life, Windsor Castle is really impressive because the drawing rooms and the banquet halls are embellished with gold. And I remember we weren't even allowed to take pictures of those parts of the castle because they want to keep it as private as possible, even if it's open to tourists. I feel like the British are really good at preserving their history and their culture. We also saw at the castle St. George's Chapel where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got married. It's really very beautiful inside. You get to see the intricate patterns of the ceilings, the floors and the walls, even the altar. You can just imagine how beautiful weddings and even daily masses would look like if you get to catch it there. So I love that. And then before we left the castle, we got a chance to see the changing of the guards. So it's so cute looking at them in their red uniform. And oh my gosh, that day was really packed with a lot of my favorite moments in London because that's also when we went to Notting Hill. So from the train station, we headed to Portobello Road. So we walked by the open markets. You'd get to see a lot of quaint shops selling antiques or scarves, and they also have a market where you'd get to see fresh fruits. So that's where you can buy raspberries and other fruits that they have in season. And I loved how the townhouses were painted with different colors. So, it was just so Instagrammable and at the same time very nice to look at. Walking by the street is really enjoyable for me. I love walking. And I just followed my city mapper. So we got to see the travel bookshop where Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts met in Notting Hill. Of course, I had my photo taken by the window of the travel bookshop. During that afternoon, we walked some more in the area. I found out from my research from the blogs that I read that one of the must-go places there would be St. Luke Mews. It was autumn when we were in London, so they have all these sprawling leaves in the houses. So that's nice to take pictures of. When we were there, I instantly spotted this townhouse that was painted pink. Pink is my favorite color, so of course, I took a picture there. And only when we got back to our home did I realize that it's the location for the movie Love Actually. We also saw a bit of the countryside when we went to the Cotswolds. So for that day, we joined a tour group. And then my aunt also met with her friend and her friend's mom, who is a big fan of Downton Abbey. So part of the tour is to drop by the fictional Yorkshire village in the series, which is actually Bampton Village in real life. So we got to see the Bampton Church and the library near the area. It's a small English village, and I enjoyed going to that church because it actually reminded me of the book Knight in Shining Armor. And the first chapter of that book opens with a girl who wished for a knight in shining armor by a church in a charming English village. And just like in the book, that's how I imagined how it would look like. Too bad it was kind of raining that day, and my body was still adjusting with the English weather, so I was having a fever. But even if I was feeling sick, I still love the other village that we went to that day, which was Borton on the Water. They call it Little Venice because they have a small pond and a bridge that looks really perfect with all these quaint shops around it. You can see a bakery, fish and chips restaurant. They also have a museum there. And then our last stop for that day was in Blenheim Palace. So, oh my gosh, they have this amazing lake and vast gardens. For the Harry Potter scene that was shot there, it was the one with Professor Snape remembering his moments when he used to have a huge crush on Harry's mom, Lily. So, very nice. The gardens are really nice. I like the huge door in front of the palace. And I remember that's the only palace in London that is not actually owned by royalty. And they also have very good coffee in the cafe that they have there. Another palace that I loved in London was the Hampton Court. It's the residence of Henry VIII, who is known for his controversial marriages with 6 different women. Of course, we have Catherine of Aragon, and another famous wife of his was Anne Boleyn. So, when we were there, I was just so amazed with these huge tapestries that were hanging in the banquet hall. The vibe inside the palace was kind of gloomy, maybe because it was not really well lit. But I remember that there's this one room where it says that Anne Boleyn's screaming voice can still be heard because remember she was beheaded so that Henry can get married to his next wife. So that's an interesting part of the tour. But the best part of going to Hampton Court is actually seeing the vast gardens. It is very well maintained and they have this perfectly shaped trees. The place was so huge that they even have a map so you can have a guide as to the places that you'd want to visit in the palace. It's also far from the city, but what I like about in London is that their train system is very easy and organized, so everything is accessible. Even the provinces can easily be reached by the trains. Of course, I also love Kensington area because that's where you'd find the Royal Albert Museum, which was built in honor of Prince Albert, the husband of Queen Victoria. So it was Prince Albert's idea to build a place in England where the public can have easy access to the arts and sciences for free. That's why you'd find in Kensington the Museum of Natural History and the Science Museum, and even the V&A Fashion Collection Museum, which can be entered for free. When we went to Prince Albert Hall, I remember that BBC proms were rehearsing, so it was nice listening to an orchestra play their music. And of course, the life story of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert were very interesting as well. So by the time we went to Kensington Palace, I was just amazed when I got to see Queen Victoria's famous dollhouse. It's really big and elaborate. So you can just imagine how a child would really enjoy playing with that stuff. But Queen Victoria was actually homeschooled. She had a lonely childhood. But when she rose to being the Queen of England, she was able to do a lot of things for the country. Queen Victoria's family tree is also interesting because she married off her children to other royalty in different parts of Europe. So you'd find that she has descendants even in other countries. After that trip to London, I even watched The Last Tsar in Netflix because Tsar Nicholas is a descendant of Queen Victoria. So that's one of the things that I learned when we visited Kensington Palace. Aside from the fact that it's the current residence of Prince William and Kate Middleton. Then you'd also get to see the Kensington Gardens when you're there. It's really this huge park that you can just visit if you want to have a feel of nature around you, if you want some bit of inspiration. Then we went to the Museum of Natural History and the Science Museum for another day because you don't want to pack everything in one day because you'd get exhausted if you do that. It was a Saturday when we went there again in Kensington, and I feel like it's very different because it's more alive when it's the weekend because you get to see the students and the I guess other residents in the area just hanging out by the cafes and restaurants there. So very nice. Of course, we also went to the Shakespeare Globe Theatre, the place where a lot of the plays of English playwright William Shakespeare can be seen during his time and even to this day. And I can just imagine how Shakespeare used to mount as you like it. So that's my favorite Shakespeare play, which says the line, "All the world is a stage and all men and women merely players." Wow. You also have that in Never Been Kissed. So that's why I remembered it. One of the places that was recommended by my brother for me to go to in London was in Shoreditch. So you'd find Brick Lane there. They have a lot of food stalls and street arts in the area. I even prepared a list of some of the street arts that I wanted to see. So it felt like some kind of a treasure hunt because I ticked off every street art that we finally got to see. Of course, we also enjoyed having our pictures taken in the street arts. They're very beautiful. It's nice that they actually have that area in London for people to express their talent for the arts, and a lot of people can enjoy it because people passing by can just take a look of them. So that's very nice. They also have a lot of good food in the area. It's like for foodies. If you're game to try street food, so they have a lot of that in Brick Lane. So it's a must-see for those who are into that as well. Another good place for foodies would be Camden Market. So it's an open-air market where you'd find a lot of food stalls. They also have small shops there. For those who are looking for vinyls, you'd find it there. Of course, in Brick Lane, they also have that. You can go there on a weekend if you want to see more people, if you want to meet other locals in the area. So that's the best time to go to Camden Market and Brick Lane. I really appreciate Tita Vanji because she knows that it was my first time going to London. So I was really excited to see everything. Even if she was a senior citizen, she managed to catch up with me in terms of all the walking that we did during that whole 10 days in London. By the time we left London, it felt like we were already locals because a lot of the places there we went to several times during that whole 10 days. And I love that because we got to enjoy the country and the culture and the local places without rushing into everything. That's why I really made sure that we make our own itinerary so we can switch up the places that we want to see. Like if we want to go back to one place, we can do it, and we won't feel pressured by other tourists waiting for us. Even our place, our Airbnb, it's still in the city, but it's not in the center of everything. So it's a residential area that's very quiet and peaceful. So after each busy day of touring around London, we get to really just relax and rest at our Airbnb home. So I hope you learned something from this vlog, and if you have any questions about how to go to the places that I went to in London, you can just leave a comment and I can message you back. Bye!
Mi preferido el blanco.
Mi preferido es el negro. ¿Y el tuyo, mami?
El amarillo.
B&A. Pwede sa gilid, pwede sa harap.
Kaya?
Yeah.
Kaya gusto mo?
Kahit saan. Ayan, dito na sa gilid yung kanina natin.
Ah, okay.